Oh,
Hey everybody, I'm Dee Lisa West. I'm a dream doula.
hello, folks. I'm Jose Salazar. I'm the owner and founder of High Performance Coaching and Consulting. Thank you for having me today.
And we are going to talk today about doubts and fears. Who has that? Pretty much every day I have doubts and fears. And I wouldn't say that I wake up afraid, although sometimes I do.
Mhm.
Uh, but the human condition is to doubt yourself and to criticize yourself and to wonder what you've done wrong. So, how are we going to get out of that loop?
Well, that's a great question. But first of all, the fact that you have fears and some doubts, that makes you normal. So feel good about
Okay.
that. We all
I'm
have
normal.
doubts and fears. You see, all these things you didn't think you were normal. But yes, uh, uh, the thing about a lot of people have doubt themselves and they have fear. The biggest fear is the fear of failure. They're
Yeah.
afraid of something going wrong, and unfortunately, that's what stops a lot of people from being successful, and what we don't realize last time is that fear and failure, it's what I call part of the process of being successful. Fears are within our mindset. It's almost part of a built-in security that we have, right? So the mind, one of the things that we're trying to do is to protect the mind, and your thoughts and everything else. So fears sometimes come up when we're going to go into something different, something new that we haven't done before. So
Hmm.
your brain activates and says, "Well, wait a minute, you don't want to do this. Now this you haven't done this before." So it's what happens with that. It's trying to try to keep you from doing something that you haven't done. So you get back what's called staying in your comfort zone. See, usually
Right.
what happens when you want to do something that's new and different, you have to step out of your comfort zone. And that's not always a good thing. So that's where those fears come in and stuff. And if you think about it, anytime you tried something different or out of the norm, we start thinking about, is this going to work? Is this possible? This is what keeps us from moving on. Like you're at a job and you're doing it for a while and might not even be happy about it, but the thought of having to look for another job and all these other things that come with it says like, oh, you know what, I might just stay here. And then you realize you're miserable when you have to
Right.
sometimes realize, okay, I got to get out of my comfort zone. This is, comfort is good, but if you want to expand, you need to be able to step out of it. So the way that we can look at this is there's three things I can say as far as overcoming doubts and fear. So the first one is you have to realize that you're going to have doubts and fears, and it's okay. And you need to be able to accept it and say, okay, this is coming up. I'm aware of it, right? The second thing you have to be able to do is that now that you're aware that it's happened, is to be able to say, okay, I have the fear, but I still am going to be able to overcome it. I'm going to also like work around it,
Yeah.
and then realize the fact that, okay, it's there to protect me, but what is it really protecting me from? From moving forward, you know and a lot of these fears don't come up as a fear, right in front of you with the flashlight saying this is fear. It comes up in different ways, such as you put things off that you might do, or you talk yourself out of something. That's the way that you protect yourself. Say, okay, well, maybe I shouldn't be doing this. So for example, if you're going to go and try to get a new job, you know you're going to go look for ads, well, in the paper, now on the web, whatever it is. But you say to yourself, well, I'm going to do it this afternoon when I come from work. Well, when you come home from work, you realize, okay, well, I got to go make dinner first. Let me go make dinner. And after dinner, oh, I got to do laundry. And you know what? I'm going to look to those job ads tomorrow. And then tomorrow something else happens. So that's the way that you keep yourself like, okay, well, it's that fear of what happens if I find a job that I might like, you know. And then sometimes we talk ourselves out of it by like attempting, like you go to a job interview, the first job interview maybe in 10 years, and they are not hiring you. You're like, see, I tried. See, I got to stay where I am. I don't want to try something different. So you have to realize that you're going to have those things, but you need to continue to move forward. And then you need to realize the fact that as the greater things that you do, the more you put out there, the greater risk, you know, you're going to have big fears. It's almost like an investor. The more money they invest, while their chance of return is much greater, there's also a greater risk, of losing things. But that's why
Oh,
when you're
that's
going to be doing these things that you're moving forward, you don't do them blindly, right? That's what that checks and balances of that fear. That fear is to this, oh, make sure everything's going okay. You can't let that stop you, because you're going to have those.
I see this cartoon in my imagination. And I don't even remember where this come from, but there's a person standing next to a cliff, and
Hmm.
they're saying, "I'm afraid, I'm afraid, I'm afraid," and then they jump and then they fly. So
Right.
the visual that you have to jump off a cliff to go into the next thing, it seems like that to the body and to
Correct.
your human brain, right? I remember many years ago, I had a new job that was pretty frightening. I was going to take people out on a boat in the ocean, and I'd never really had that job before. And I remember looking in the mirror and saying to myself, I'm really scared. Uh, the day before I took the first people out. I was like, okay, you can just acknowledge that you're scared and do it anyway. And, by the end of the summer, it was like, oh, that was the best job I ever had. That was so much fun. But it was also really, really frightening as soon as I got the job, but I hadn't done it yet. I was like, wait a minute, what am I doing? Why did I say yes? How do I don't know how to do that. Yeah,
Right. Right. And exactly, there's a
yeah.
lot of things that people don't know how to do them until they've done them. One
Right.
thing that I tell people, and it's a lot for married couples. So think back the night before you're going to get married. All right. You probably had some fear as to, like, what am I doing? What
Yeah.
am I about to do? I'm about to just, get, married to someone for the rest of my life. A lot of people have those fears, but, you know, I would say 99.9% of them still continue with the next day and get married, right?
Mm.
And they're going to work that. But, but those are the fears that happen, and, you talked about a new job, you know, anything that's different is going to cause that. But again, you have to realize that that's, part of the process. That's an important thing. And if you ask any successful person, they will tell you, they failed many times. Unfortunately, many times we just hear about the successes, of what people have done, but we don't realize all the failures they had getting there, because no one wants to hear about that, right?
Yeah, unless
So,
you're a motivational speaker and you want to just spill it to everybody, you
right,
probably don't talk about all the obstacles that you had to overcome to be where you are now. And if you're
right,
alive, you've had to overcome some obstacles. You've
absolutely,
had to get beyond some fear to be wherever you are right now listening to this
sure,
podcast. Yeah.
sure. No, that's absolutely true. And in order to be successful, you have to accept fear, you have to accept failure, and remember that that's how you learn. It's that's what they're there for. And if you're afraid to fail, it's going to prevent you from moving in the direction of your dreams.
Right. And I know that our mentor that we studied with, both of us, says failure is simply feedback.
Correct?
And we make up this big story about like I didn't do it right. That means this or that. When really, okay, that's not the right way to do it. Regroup and do it another way.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. I
Yeah.
mean, I'm sure your listeners have heard this many times, but you hear about Thomas Edison, about 1,000 times that he failed at discovering the light bulb. And when he asked about how do you feel about failing so many times, he was like, I didn't fail. I just discovered 1,000 ways of not to make a light bulb. It's all a
Yeah,
matter of perspective.
exactly. And I think it was 10,000 ways.
10,000, yes. Mhm.
I've heard 2,000. I've heard 10,000. Either way, even 1,000,
It's the moral of the story.
I probably would have given up after 950. But
Right. Hmm.
he had a mission and he said, it doesn't work this way, let's try it again. It doesn't work this way, let's try it again. And
Right.
I suppose that's the ultimate way
And
to
the thing is that a lot
succeed.
of times we don't realize, we don't want to do things until we know how to do it. And we're
Yeah,
not always going to know how to do things. That's why when you want to find something, you have to decide what you want to do before you can figure out how. Because if you don't know what you want to do, or what your goal is, what your dream is, you're not going to figure out how to get there. You know,
indeed. Yeah. So you have a program about fear of failure. Is that right?
yes. Well, I mean, one of the things that gets covered in the coaching program, one of the areas, we help people is overcoming fear and failure because that's an important part. It's probably one of the most challenging one because that's the one that really gets a lot of people hung up, because it's real easy when they start talking about their dreams and their goals and what they want to achieve. And that's all great. But then when they start going back into the everyday, that they realize, okay, I'm going to have to do this and that. And that's what scares them. So we work them through it. We help them, go through the process of, hey, it's going to happen. But then we provide them tools, and support to be able to move forward. And then they start seeing it's okay. You know, it's almost like going into deep water. You go slowly, but then you're able to do it once you learn. But if you just throw yourself in deep water without knowing how to tread water, or swim, it's going to be a problem. So we teach you how to tread water, how to swim, so you can go, into the deep end. Because what
That's
happens, a lot
beautiful.
of people always stay, it's comfortable to stay in the shallow end, but there's a lot of greatness in the deep end.
Yes.
Hmm.
And I think every elite sports person or young people that like to do like frightening, scary things like jump off of mountains and jump out of airplanes and go ice climbing and things like that,
Right.
the thrill of it is also you could fail badly, but
Yes.
at the end of the day, you didn't.
Right.
And
I mean, look
so,
at the if you're when you look at the Olympics and you look at
mm,
the ski jumpers, and now
oh
it's
yeah,
big on the snowboards and everything else, and they've gotten so good that they're at level competing, and you got to ask yourself, how did they get to that level? How many times did they fall,
yeah,
hurt themselves? I mean, how did they start practicing? I mean, you see them do these 360s and all this. I'm like, that's crazy.
yeah. You gotta fall down a lot before you learn how to do stuff like that. So that's
Absolutely.
beautiful. So your program deals with fear and failure, but I think if you started out saying, "Hey, are you afraid of failure? Come study with me." Nobody would really sign up for that.
Right.
But
No, they don't. But
if they want to have a beautiful life and they have a goal or a dream that they've never achieved, but their heart is calling them to do it,
absolutely. What I
you can
ask
help.
people is, what is it that you'd love to do? You know,
What would you love?
that yes, it's not what you want, what you can, but what would you love? What makes people come alive? Because that's the thing that we're always trying to satisfy other people and limit what we do based on our conditions, our situations, stuff, instead of like, okay, what really makes you come alive? And people don't stop and think about that until they realize, you have to really ask them yourself, what really would you love to do? And then they start telling you, and they're like, why aren't you doing it?
And when you ask people and they're really telling you what they would love to do, it is like that Howard Thurman quote, what lights you up? They
Correct.
actually light, if you're watching them, they light
Yes.
up. Their eyes get
They
shiny
light
and
up and they
bright.
start talking about them. Yes.
Their face looks happy,
Hmm.
and that is what they would love to do
Right.
when they're
That's why
there in
that's
that
why you
zone.
can tell.
Yeah,
You can tell when they're really doing that. And they just start talking about it and stuff, and then they're like, oh wow, they don't even realize themselves. But yes, you're absolutely right, Lisa. You can tell in their face, in their expressions,
yeah,
and they're just talking away. And
yeah.
sometimes it's something that's been tied, it's been in the back of their brain for so long, but we suppress those thoughts with everyday life.
Ooh,
No,
because we're afraid to fail.
correct, correct. You know,
Yeah, so if you don't ever try, you can't fail.
that's right. And if you never try, you're never going to fail and you're never going to achieve the success of the potential that you have because everyone has potential to do so much.
Yes, yes. And so thank you, Jose, for all the work you do in the world. helping people with their potential and helping them move beyond their fears and doubts and worries. I
Well,
appreciate you.
Delisa, thank you so much, for having me on, and thank you for all the great work that you do.
Thank you, Jose. It's lovely to see you. And until next time, bye for now.
Bye bye.